Let's do it. Okay. Yeah, listen, I'm on the computer, as we know, to Mike Holt. He's been very gracious and generous with his time and sitting through sorting out these problems. So I'm thinking we just start. Austin can fire a few questions. I'll hear them. I'm going to pass them on to Mike. And then what we can do is we can ask some people in the audience for some questions as well. Everybody can hear me okay from here? Okay, fantastic. Okay. So, Mike, we had a chat on the radio a couple of mornings ago. Some people here would have heard that. But I think what the direction we were going to go with Austin was what, again, started you off in this direction. And we wanted to kind of gear this meeting more towards what general people can do with this knowledge of common law that can help them out. And I guess to more practical stuff, as opposed to, who stamped what, where, when, and how we can use common law practically. So what did that look like for you initially?
Well, initially, just before COVID struck, we were having a series of Zoom calls with some people around Australia, but hosted by a guy in Victoria. And as I was listening to it, I realized that everybody's talking, but nobody was doing anything. Somebody did set up a website, but that didn't work. So I waited for a little while. Nobody else did anything. So I set up the common law website. And I used the materials supplied by Kevin Annette from Canada. This is I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, this is the main book here. It's called Establishing the Reign of Natural Liberty, a Common Law Training Manual. Now, this is actually available on the website for sale, and I'll show you where that is later on. So what's the use of a common law assembly, and how do you stand in common law? Well, I think the first thing we need to understand is the type of country that we're living in at the moment. We have two systems of law in place here. We have our common law, which is based on our constitution is based in common law. And then we have admiralty law, which is the government one. I don't know if you know much about the history of law, but in Australia, but back in before 1972, when Whitlam came to power, we were actually the Commonwealth of Australia. And we were tied very closely to the British Crown. And what Whitlam did in 1972-73 was to try and divorce us from the British Crown and create a de facto republic. He did that, but he never had a referendum of the people. He was a very autocratic man. So we have this problem now where people have, how do you differentiate between common law and admiralty law? So when you're dealing with government, anything to do with the government is admiralty law. And the main difference is you are guilty in admiralty law until you can prove yourself innocent. But under common law, we are innocent unless proved guilty. Now, this is very pertinent to my situation at the moment, because next Monday I go into court on trial and they have to prove their case. I don't have to say or do a thing. They have to prove their case. So that's how you stand in common law. So when I go into their court, I'll still be standing in common law because I'm protected under the Constitution, under the Bill of Rights, 1688, that's the English Bill of Rights, and also by the Magna Carta. They're operating outside of all of those, and therefore they have no protections. How do you live your life as a common law man or woman? It's in your heart. If you believe that you are free and you act like a free man, you don't bow down to the people who tell you what to do, you are living as a common law man or woman. And it's really that simple. And can anybody tell us the two main rules that we live by under common law?
We're hearing a lot of do no harm in the room.
Yes.
One more. Be truthful in your transactions was another one.
Well, that's a good one, yes, but it's not the main one. Well, yeah, what it is, but it's not the one I was thinking of. The other one is take responsibility for your own actions. When you start taking responsibility and stop relying on the government to do something, then you are living as a common law man or woman. So it's not a magic pill. And in these days, it's not even viable sometimes to live as we would like to, live free. Now, when we're born with certain inalienable, or I call unalienable, rights. You can't put a lien on our rights because you are born with these rights. You'll die with them. And the only way you can lose them is if you are silly enough to bow down to other people and give them the right to tell you what to do. So does that explain it?
Absolutely. And just further to that, then, we see, especially, there's a thing against the common law people, the sovereign citizens, they call them, which we know is a misnomer. So how do we stand in our truth, stand in our integrity, and stop the police, for example, smashing our car windows and dragging us out and putting us on the floor and then detaining us for a week or 2 weeks?
Well, a chap in Sydney recently was in court, and the judge said, "Oh, you're one of those sovereign citizens, are you?" And he shot straight back and said, "Oh, you must be a conspiracy theorist. I have to question your mental abilities." Boom, that shut him right up.
So again, one I saw recently on the great Daily Mail, which I look at for the propaganda, was the police smashing windows and dragging people out of cars. It sounds great for us to stand in our truth and to stand in the common law, but the system is rigged. It's a system that's rigged against us. So how do we position ourselves in more authority and more strength by using the common law system?
Well, this is the thing. As I said at the start, you have to understand that there are two systems. So when you're dealing with the police, you deal with them on their terms. You cannot stand in common law with the police. They don't recognize it. They will not recognize it. And they will say that you are being combative and argumentative. And therefore, they have every right to do what they do to you. So the thing is, we have to use our brains when dealing with these people. We don't get argumentative. We don't get combative. We use our brains and deal with them in a way that keeps them at bay. And, you have to stand in your own truth, but at the same time, you have to deal with what they're saying. So if they demand your driver's license, give it to them. So what? It's not even yours, it's theirs.
And what are your thoughts then of, if you're agreeing with them, of entering into their contract?
Well, as I said, you have to deal with them on their terms. So when you are agreeing with them or whatever you're doing, you are already contracted with them. You can't avoid it. So when you start saying, "Oh, but I'm a common law man," all you're going to do is cause trouble. And it's taken me a long time to realize this. And a lot of people still don't get it. But the fact is, let's say you get a fine. Now, a lot of people come to me and say, "Mike, can you help me get out of my fine?" Well, if the fine's $100 or something, just pay the thing. And you can write to them and tell them, "I'm paying this fine under duress, so that when we finally get under common law properly, you can claim that money back." But just pay the fine and get on with your life. Their aim is to cause you as much trouble as possible. Your aim is to stay out of trouble. So if that means bowing down and doing what they demand, do it. If you want to fight them, go ahead, but you'll probably lose. And that's the big problem. The deck is stacked against us at the moment.
So why do we do it then?
Well,
if we're going to lose,
not always. You don't always lose, and we are finding out new ways to fight back now legally. So, for instance, now, like the other day, I got a fine from Spur, and they were threatening to take away my license. In fact, they did take away my license, and it was just a clerical error. They sent the rego renewal to the wrong address, and I never got it. So for about 8 months, I've been driving around with no rego. So when I finally found out what was going on, they'd already sent me bills for $2,000. Well, I'm not going to pay that, right? So what I did, I followed the advice of Michael Schultz from Live in Private, and it's on our website. In fact, I will show you where to go. There we have the screen for cirnow.com.au, and I'll just go back out here again and I'll show you how to find it. So you'll see here the big bird, and down here a wee bit is this one here, dealing with fines. And this is part 2. Dealing with fines part 1 is how to deal with anonymous envelopes. I don't recommend you do this too often because they generally get very nasty and they just keep on going. You have to deal with these people. So when they make you an offer, you can't refuse. You know, they're like the mafia. So click here and then come over here, and we can use the CQV Trust. Do you all know what the CQV Trust is? It's the Cestui Que Trust, pronounced Set-A-K. And basically, when you are born, they take your footprint, your blood, and they set up a trust in your name for the straw man. Now, I can't go into all of that today, but basically what happens is if you send them back, and I'll just show you here what it looks like. This part of the bill, you can see this top third, that is actually a check drawn on our CQV Trust. And this barcode here is what the bank uses to access our money in the trust. So all you do is you write this bill/offer is accepted as money for the dollar amount shown here, this one up here. Now take it back and use as a remittance to settle the account, and then you sign it here. So you just follow the instructions on there. So this is one way to actually deal with them and get them to take the money out of your CQV Trust and pay the bill. Now, if you don't do that, then you're going to have an awful lot of big battles, and they may even try and drag you into court. We want to try and avoid that if possible. So,
has that successfully worked for people, Mike? So, can you categorically kind of say, because there's a lot of people who would be interested in that?
Oh, definitely. It's working in New South Wales. I believe it's working in Queensland, although I haven't spoken to Michael lately to find out how that's going. But I'm doing it myself. And so far, I've got my license back. I just rang them up and told them I was going to take them to court. But in fact, what I have done is I sent that check back, signed the way I did. Now, what do you do when you get a check from anybody?
So we're hearing bank it is the consensus, I think.
Right. But before you can do that, you have to sign it, right?
Yep.
Right. So you sign that check and you send it back to them. And then they can take the money out of the account. It's that simple. So what I've done now is I've done that. I've also, because they, the time lapse between me mailing stuff to them and them mailing stuff to me, things are overlapping. So they sent me another bill for over $2,000 on this fine, and I just sent them back a what do they call it? Well, it was a document they sent me, a statutory declaration, and I wrote it all in red ink. And basically, what I told them is, you sent a fine for the straw man. I am not the straw man. So what I'm doing now is I'm changing my name for you to the straw man by this stat dec so that you can take the money out of my Cestui Que Trust. So I haven't heard anything. I did that about 2 weeks ago, and I haven't heard a word back since. Now, I'm expecting what they will come back and do is they'll just say, okay, payment accepted and goodbye. That's it, done. And I haven't actually had to pay any money.
And so you're saying that other people have had that specific outcome already?
Oh, yeah.
Is that right? Okay, yes. That's interesting, yeah. And what happens then with the system, and I use kind of air quotes on that, when too many people start doing that? That kind of really bucks a trend. Do you see that they are going to be clamping down on that significantly?
They can't, because it's the law. That's the beauty of it. It is the law, and we're working on the law. I'll just show you my, just a moment. Got to get the right one here. Get the right screen, and I'll share the screen here. Okay. Hang on a minute.
With the technical issues we had, Mike, you got a lot of favors stacked up. So
No problem. Okay. So on here, you'll see here, there are, the first one is down here, dealing with fines, anonymous envelopes. There's a video for that. There's another one about dealing with fines, part 2, fines and bills, letters. And part 3 is time for court. And then we also talk about the Crimes Act. Now, if you come over here, I don't know if you can still see this. I better stop sharing and get the other one. We also have it on my website. So if you go on there and watch those videos, it'll tell you all about it. And Michael and I are doing a series of videos. And as I deal with each part of this paying the fine, we're doing a video about it and explaining what's going on. So you can follow my progress. Hopefully the next one I'll be able to say fine gone.
And so that fine was specifically the spur fine, right? So what about your other bills, like your electricity or your bank, your mortgage, even your tax debt? You're saying that same process should be applicable and transferable? Is that right?
That's correct. That people are paying their mortgages and electricity bills with it. It's working. Now, you asked a very interesting question there. What happens if too many people do it? That's the whole point. The more people who do it, the more we're undermining the system until it becomes unviable for them. Now, this is the same thing. I don't know if you guys have started up on my place in Cairns yet, but we're doing it here on the Sunshine Coast, and many other assemblies are doing the same thing. By setting up our own local council, and what we're doing is by suburb. So I live in Maroochydore. It's one of the biggest suburbs on the Sunshine Coast. So we're going to form our local council just after I come back from my court case, and we're going to start setting up a bank account, a community bank account, and then all the rates will go into that bank account, and we will deny the government council the rates. They can't operate without our money, can they? So we're gradually, bit by bit, we're learning how to undermine their system using our common law. Now, the laws that we're using against them are actually common law. They're enshrined in the Constitution, and they were passed before Whitlam came along. So these are valid laws, and we can use them against them. And they can't do anything about it, because if they do, they're breaking the law, and then we take them to court.
Now, there's a few little things that come up for me. We've had a fellow here, Romney Stewart, who you might be aware of from Justinian Deception.
I know Ron, yeah.
Interesting character. And he has a slightly different approach, which is to accept any offer, but then have your charges attached to that offer as a conditional acceptance. So would you be saying we should be trying all these different techniques, just picking away at the system by doing different things? Or would you say your system is better, or there's flaws in what he would do?
Look, I tried that. I've tried it over the last few years, and it didn't work for me. And to be honest with you, I don't know anybody who tried that and had it work for them. I do know that the system that I've just talked about, it's fairly new, but they've been doing it down in Western Sydney there for about 6 months, and it's been working. So I can't say whether one system is better than the other. If you want to try the other system, go for it. I mean, the system by the Know Your Rights group, I know some people have had success with it, with the 3 letters. Others have failed. And I'm one of the ones that failed using their system. They say it was because I didn't follow the steps properly, but I did. But still, the system deals with us the way it feels like dealing with us. And nothing is foolproof, not even that one that I just talked about on the video. You know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We're dealing with people who basically are totally brainwashed and very corrupt. So we have a big problem there.
And more than that, it seems that things are kind of stacked against, as you said, anyway, and they seem to pull out, I guess, devious interpretations of the legalese system.
Yeah.
So,
Austin, you had a question?
If a bill is sent by email, can we use the same process in relation to the trust? Or do
Yes.
we need a hard copy?
Well, I don't think I've ever had a fine by email, although I do get my I do a lot of other stuff like paying my electricity and water and rent by email or by bank transfer. But you can turn that into a paper trail and do it that way.
Okay, so print it out.
Yeah.
Yep, good answer. So if we go back to when our constitution was changed unlawfully, so Austin wants to know, did the Queen knowingly go back to the UK or go back to England and allow that to happen? So I think, are you asking, was she complicit in the fraud?
Yes, she did.
Okay.
Let me share the screen. Now, if you go on to CIR Now again, cirnow.com.au, and this first one up here tells the story of how the political parties stole our future. Now, there's a video here, which is quite a simple video. You might want to watch that. But I've also got the 4 steps that they took. So step 1, the political parties in 1960 removed the Governor-General from representing Her Most Excellent Majesty. Ever since then, Queen Elizabeth continues to appoint Governor-Generals, but when she sends the appointment letter over, the Parliament takes her seal off and puts this one on instead, which is the kangaroo and emu. This is the official seal here. So by taking control of the Governor-General, they got rid of the Queen. Now, step 2, in 1966, the political parties created their own counterfeit money, and they did this because they wanted to borrow a lot of money off the American banks. And the American banks basically said, yep, we'll lend it to you, but you have to do 2 things. You have to change your money over to dollars so that you can repay the loan, and you must send your army and young men and women to fight for us in Vietnam. Now, I was one of those blokes. I went over there in 1967 to fight in the Vietnam War. That's another story. So they took away our money. Now, our constitution says that all government functionaries must be paid in pounds. We don't have pounds anymore, so none of them are getting paid lawfully. Step 3, Whitlam unlawfully took control of the government at the end of 1972 with help from the then Governor-General, Paul Hasluck, and that was even before vote counting was finished. So we don't know if he actually won the election or not. So then Gough Whitlam and Lance Barnard formed a duumvirate, that is a two-man ministry, to run all 27 portfolios from the 5th to the 19th of December 1972. It was the smallest ministry in Australia's history. And while they were doing that, they made many changes to our constitution and to the laws. And basically what they did was Whitlam took the Queen out of the constitution by amending the Royal Style and Titles Act and changing the oath for the Queen of Australia. Now, who is the Queen of Australia? I have no idea. It could be Carlotta. But when you start reading this, you can read all the details. So I'll just go through it very, very briefly. And step 4, in 1986, Gough Whitlam created the Australia Act. Now, he invited the Queen over to sign it, but when she got here, she asked him, have you had a referendum? Because only we, the people, can amend our constitution by voting in a referendum. That's in section 128 of the constitution. So he said, no, we haven't had a referendum. She said, all right, well, I'll sign it on the front, and you must have a referendum before I sign it into law. So when she went back home to England, Bob Hawke said, bugger that. I'm going to sign it with my name, Bob, B-O-B, in all caps, Hawke, and that's not his real name. So it's not even a real law. So, but the state governments and the local councils all rely on the Australia Act for their authority. They have none, because when a law is passed illegally, then it's a null and void. There's no law in this country anymore. We are governed by a mafia-like organisation calling itself the Australian government, which is registered as a private corporation in the USA.
Why would the Queen then give up her, I guess, ownership to a certain extent?
Well, they colluded. I have a book here published by the National Library, sorry, which is a book of all the letters exchanged between Whitlam and the government and the Queen. And I've read those letters, and she actually agreed to let him do it. So she was a traitor to the crown.
Was she a traitor, or was there I guess, a mix between the banking system and her, an agreement
in my eyes and my view, she was a traitor. She supposed to took an oath to protect the members of the Commonwealth, including the Commonwealth of Australia, and she didn't do that. She let governments like Whitlam override her. So they took her powers.
Right. So my question for you then, Mike, is, you probably know from previous videos that you've seen that I'm from the US. I'm not from a Commonwealth nation. So when I've come here, I see that I see that all the Constitution in Australia is fundamentally, it's based on the authority that's handed down from the Queen in order to establish this land as a Commonwealth nation.
Right.
Now, if that Queen has betrayed the Commonwealth, then how do you see the Constitution having, even the original Constitution, having jurisdiction if there's no backing from the Crown?
Well, you see, the backing doesn't come from the Queen, King or Queen. It comes from the Crown. Now, the Crown is actually, when you look at the coat of arms, the power comes from the shield. Now, in the old days, when knights went into battle, what went ahead of them? It was the shield. That's where the power came from, right? So the shield shields we, the people in the Commonwealth, from bad people and bad deeds. That's what it's supposed to do. So it doesn't matter who sits on the crown, on the throne. The shield and the laws passed under that are what hold it all together. Now, I believe that we need some very serious amendments made to our Constitution. We know we are no longer really tied to the British Crown, except in name. So, and as I said, right now, we don't have a lawful government. We haven't had since 1972. So, or even back as far as 1960 or even further. I mean, this has been going on for a long time, almost since the day of federation. The parties have been undermining our constitutional rights. So we need to amend our Constitution. Now, a few years ago, came up with a new website, well, it was new then, called advance-australia.com.au. Now, this website lays out a plan for the future, and it's based on proportional representative with CIR means justice for all. CIR means citizens-initiated referendums. So here is a bit of an introduction to why we need it, and here is the solution. So there are 5 points. Now, if we implement these 5 points, first of all, by getting a proper government of the people, by the people, for the people, we can get our country back on track. So the first thing we need to do is to amend our Constitution, Section 128, to give every citizen, every voter, the right to binding citizens-initiated referendums. That means we should be able to vote in referendums to amend our Constitution without having to beg the Parliament to allow us to have a referendum. Now, the big problem we face at the moment is when the Founding Fathers wrote the Constitution, I'll just unshare here, they wrote a fantastic Constitution, and one of the constitutions they referred to when they were writing it was the American Constitution, the German, the French, the Polish, and a few others. I believe we've got one of the best constitutions in the world, probably even better than the American one, if it could be made to work. It's not working for us at the moment. But if we can amend that requirement, so our Founding Fathers allow us to change the Constitution, but they gave the power to start a referendum only to the Parliament. That's the problem. So if we take our power back by giving everybody the right to start a referendum, boom, all of a sudden the political parties lose their power over us. Now, I used to be a member of I joined the Liberal Party many years ago because I wanted to find out what they were all about. And one day, because I've been campaigning even way back then in the 2012, 2010, I started campaigning way back then for CIR. And one day, one of the leaders of the party came up to me and said, Mike, you've got to stop doing this. The Liberal Party or the Labor Party will never agree to CIR. And I said, why not? They said, because it would take away our power. And I thought, okay, now I know. And I resigned from the party. So, and then I joined I was stupid. I joined One Nation, another political party. And no matter what they say, they are all part of the same problem. They're all in that parliament and they're all corrupt. They have to be, because that's the way the system is set up. So if we're going to change the system, the first thing we have to do is to put the power back into the hands of we, the people, through citizens-initiated referendums. Now, we can't do that unless we can have a secure voting system. So we have already created an online voting system based on the blockchain. It's called the QMS voting system. And this will allow you to vote anywhere, anytime, and that would give us a much more flexible and stronger democracy. So it's not only for the Constitution, but if we want to vote on a local issue or a state issue or a regional issue or even an Australian issue, we can do it on this online voting system. So those two combined will put the power in our hands. Now, what do we do with that? The first thing we have to do then, step 3, is to reform the electoral system through a carefully considered constitutional referendum to reduce the size of electorates down to no more than 5,000 voters, because right now they're all around about 100,000 voters. Nobody can reach that many people. No person who wants to get elected can reach and talk to that many people. But with 5,000 voters, we can hold a series of town hall meetings and talk to just about everybody in the community. So that's important. And then we combine 50 of those 5,000 electorates to create a new regional government. And that would get rid of state governments, and our representatives would be directly accountable to the voters. Now, this will slim down the number of representatives as well and eliminate big bang elections and allow us to decide on important questions affecting the nation and our communities immediately. A decision is required. Now, if we vote in the big parties now and we want to make them change something, we have to wait till the next big bang election. And we know no matter how many promises they make, they'll never do it. So it's a waste of time. So that's step 3. Step 4 is to reform the taxation and the financial and banking system. That's a very difficult one to talk about. So I don't talk too much about the banking and financial system, but eventually we're going to have to do that. Now, how can we do that? We get rid of all taxes and bring in a single corporate bank taxation tax. Now, I know other people have proposed other ways to do it, and I've got no problem with that if that's what the people want, but we need to take the power away from the banking institutions. So if we did that, imagine no more GST, payroll, business income, and all the other taxes, just a single tax payable by the companies. Now, why would we make them pay the tax? They're the ones generating the income, aren't they? They're the ones employing people. So get rid of the taxes and bring in a single tax. And finally, service to the nation. Now, by then, if our country is giving us so much, and it will be, it's only fair that we give something back. So those eligible to serve will be able to choose either civil or military service, and all equipment supplied to these services must be manufactured in Australia within a certain time limit. And that will be determined by the availability of trained people and materials. Now, imagine what that would do to our economy straight away if we have companies that need to manufacture for our military. And from that, we'll get more manufacturing. We'll build up our economy. And that we will also build up a strong military capable of defending our country. Right now, our country is like a woman lying on the ground with her neck exposed. She can't defend herself, and we're going to get our heads cut off very quickly if somebody decides to invade us. So with a strong military, its purpose would be to only defend Australia. Now, if our allies come to us and say, well, we want you to send your troops to Whoop Whoop overseas somewhere, we would have to have a referendum of the people to decide whether we want to send our troops into danger or not, right? But if we are being attacked from outside and people are trying to come to Australia, then the Parliament would have the immediate right to send our troops overseas to defend our country, but only to stop an attack on our country, not because they disagree with the politics of some other country. So that's the 5 steps. I think the best idea here would be maybe your members can debate this later on, but I'd just like to get your thoughts on that. What do you think?
Well, immediately my thought on it is that's kind of the intention of a democracy, is to put the power in the hands of the people. We elect our representatives to go do what we want them to do, to represent us.
That's right.
But my question for you, I guess, where I was gonna go with that that monarchy question and the crown question was, do you see the future of Australia still remaining as a Commonwealth nation or an independent nation? And if so, then does that mean we have, as far as our federal government is concerned, do we have an elected leader, something like a president, or do we try and stay under a crown that we know has betrayed us?
This is a very good question. I can't answer because it's not up to me. It's up to the people. What I would like to see is, yes, I think I didn't finish explaining about the electoral system there that I was proposing, but once we have the regional government of 50 electorates, 5,000 voters, one person from that region would then be elected to go to the federal parliament to represent the region. Now, each representative in the regional government and in the federal government will be directly accountable back to the people. So it will be up to the people to hold a series of carefully considered meetings to decide what they want for the future of Australia. Do we get rid of the crown? I think that would be a good idea, but that's my opinion. Do we set up as a republic of the people, and how would that work? We certainly don't want a republic that's proposed by the government, but the people have different ideas, and that's what we want that should count. So it's really up to the people what they say. I'm only proposing this series of steps to put the power back in the hands of the people and encourage the growth of our nation and the protection of our nation. Everything else will be in the hands of the people.
Mike, just onto that. So some of the meetings that we've been having here show that we are not actually in Australia. It's an occupied territory. So how does that work? If we en masse say no, are we then belligerent? Are we then at war with the occupying force? Is there any need for them to even listen to us, or legally or lawfully, are they entitled just to shoot us?
That's not strictly true.
What are your thoughts then? How would you sum that up?
We are still a nation we are still the Commonwealth of Australia under our constitution. We have been invaded and occupied by these political parties. They are not Australian. They are political corporate entities registered in the USA. Now, Section 44 of our Constitution specifically forbids that. So they are invaders. We are at war, have been for a long time. Nobody nobody told us. So how do we combat this? Read the Magna Carta, Article 61. And if you translate that, basically it says we have an absolute right to lawfully rebel. So by using their laws and our laws against them, we are lawfully rebelling. We are refusing to pay their fines. We're making them pay from our Cestui Que Vie Trust instead. There's many, many ways we can do it without resorting to violence. I'm very much against violence. I've been to war. I know what violence does. It's horrible. I don't want that.
would anything then be stopping, let's say the knowledge, the awareness got out there, and for example, the Australian Army decided that they wanted to operate with us, would anything be stopping that system for sending the United Nations in?
No.
Because I said,
remember, we're dealing with criminals. They can do anything they want and they will. But if the army comes over to our side and says, we've had enough of this, we know now that we've been massively deceived and massively lied to, and we're going to side with the people. What's the government going to do? They could call in the UN, but I guarantee you, even if we don't have a rifle, you and I would be out there with a slingshot or a machete or whatever to defend our country from the invaders, wouldn't you?
Right. Well, you know, I would.
Yeah.
That's kind of born into me. But
yes,
Mike, I think we've touched on this point a couple of times tonight. We've mentioned it. So we have this rule of law that we see, and that foundational document is going to be the Constitution of 1901. But we also know that they aren't totally disregarding that. So in essence, is there even a rule of law in Australia right now? Because I can tell you, I believe in my country, back in the States where I was born, in the United States of America, there isn't a rule of law right now.
I agree. And same here. We have no rule of law. As I said, we have a mafia-like organization, which is a tyrannical government. They are telling us how to live our lives. That is not common law. And our Constitution guarantees our rights to live free.
So when you go into the courts then, and you talk about this is the law and you must follow it, what gives you assurance that they're actually going to acknowledge that and follow it?
Well, this is a very good question that I will be answering on Monday when I go into court. I don't know if you know the full story, but basically I was charged with publishing an article when there was a suppression order against talking about the court case that I published the article about. I didn't know at the time there was a suppression order, and they have to prove that I did. But since there's no proof, they're going to have a hard time. But they've been very nasty to me because over the last 3 years, they've been chasing me through their courts, trying to get me down to Victoria. Now, Section 80 of our Constitution states that in a criminal case, which is what I'm involved in, the accused must be tried in the state where they are accused of committing the crime. I published the article here in Queensland, not in Victoria, but they're trying to drag me into their courts down there. So last September, I was supposed to stand trial. I refused to go. The next month, they sent cops around, a whole bunch of them, to my place, and I had just walked out of the house to do some work on my car when, zoom, all these cops descended on me, arrested me, threw me into jail, then put me on a plane the next day down to Victoria, threw me into prison for 6 days total until I was able to get out on bail. So we're dealing with criminals, people who don't care about the law. It's that simple. So when you understand that, then we have to get very smart about how we deal with them. So when I go into court, first of all, the Australian government has signed up to a thing called the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And in section, I think it's 19, it states specifically that I have an absolute right, everyone has an absolute right to freedom of speech. And you can write, speak, record, publish, whatever you like, without being punished for it. So the court itself is breaking their own government law. We've signed that covenant and they have to abide by it. So when I go into court, that's the first thing I'll be talking about. I've already brought up every time I appear in their court that they are breaking Constitution Section 80. And they say, oh, yes, but we were operating under Victorian law. They don't get that they're not. The Constitution, Section 109, specifically says, when a law of the state does not agree with the law of the Commonwealth, that is the Constitution, is supreme. They have to obey it, and they're not. Now, I've tried to take these people to the federal court, the Supreme Court, and the High Court. And every time I go banging on those doors, I get rejected. In fact, I'm having a big problem with the federal court right now. I've been trying to take these judges to court and they won't let me in. But eventually we will win. We'll keep banging on those doors. Now, I'm not alone. I'm working with a very good team of people. We've got people all over Australia now banging on those courtroom doors, and eventually we'll knock the damn things down. And when we do, we'll hold these people accountable.
One of the things that comes to me is that the noose seems to be tightening in general with medical tyranny, mandatory vaccines, lockdowns, and what would you say for people in general to lose that fear, I guess, or to try to mobilize them? Australia's been through a fairly hard time for the last 3 years, and I think a lot of people are worn out.
And they don't seem to have learned anything, do they? Look, we the people are supreme. The first 3 words in our constitution are, whereas the people. That empowers we the people as the supreme authority over the parliament, right? We are in charge. We are the masters. They are the public servants. We've all forgotten that. So we have to start realizing who is in charge here. We are. The government doesn't tell us what to do. We tell the government. So can anybody tell me what a constitution is? Define what the constitution is about. What is it?
Nice and loud.
Anybody?
So, protect our rights has come through there.
No?
Law of the land.
No. It's a workplace contract between we, the people of the Commonwealth, and the Parliament. The Parliament is employed by us. We appoint the Parliament. So it's a workplace contract. And if you read section 51, it tells the Parliament exactly what they can pass laws on and nothing else. Now, if you look at section 51 placetum, that's in brackets, 23A, it states in there that the government can provide medical services, but not so as to conscript us. They can provide the service, they cannot force us. So when they start telling us next time, you've got to lock down or you've got to take the jab, you just say, I do not comply. That's it. If you do not comply, what are they going to do? But it has to be a lot of us. And there's nothing to be afraid of these people. Once you understand that they are the ones who should be afraid of us, you lose that fear. We are supreme. We are sovereign. Each one of us is a sovereign. So don't be afraid. They're not going to come after your jobs. And if we all stick together and say, I do not comply.
Right. Mike, do you mind if I change gears real quick just for a moment and ask you a couple of questions about your commonlaw.earth website?
Sure.
Now, our assembly, when we first got started, we used that website as a platform to get ourselves recognized, if you will. We registered on that website as an assembly. We convened with, well, it was more than 12 members at the time, but we established a convener. And then we started going into that process of submitting our details online to declare our personal sovereignty, right? And I just have a question. Where does that come from as far as common law is concerned? That need for a personal declaration or to register an assembly, where does that come from?
Okay, look, the website, I think there seems to be a lot of misconceptions about the website. The website is a general purpose information source. You can learn all about common law on there. We also give each assembly, and I need to talk to you about this, Austin, because at the moment you haven't been accessing the website and using your page. You've actually got a page on the website.
Yes, I know.
So if you give me a call tomorrow, Dennis has got my number. I'll do a Zoom call with you, and I'll take you through and show you how to use the website. You can use that page to announce your meetings or post any information, pictures, whatever. That's your page, and we don't tell you what to do with that page. You also have an email address, which I can forward all emails to yours, so that anybody who writes to Cairns at commonlaw.earth, you'll get the emails. At this stage, I'm not sure who gets them. So I'd be very happy to show you how to use the website. That's on the meeting side. Then if you go to records, you have to register on the website an account. And once you do that, you get your own personal profile page. And on that profile page, you'll be able to record things like your live birth, your marriage, your car, your property, etc., etc. Now, who signs those certificates? Me. I am a CPO, a Commonwealth public official. I was appointed by through Tim O'Dwyer, who is a notary public appointed by the Archbishop of Canterbury. So we have actually got direct royal assent to our signatures on any documents. Now, each certificate has my red print thumbprint. It's got my seal and it's got my autograph. So it's those certificates I know have been used, for instance, at Centrelink to get benefits. You take your live birth certificate, they'll accept it. So those documents have royal approval or crown approval. So that's another thing you can do. Let me just go onto the website here. Hang on a second. I've got to find where we are. Yeah, there we go. Let me just see. Nope. There we go. Right. I'll share the screen.
So Mike, while you're looking that up, the question that we had with several of our assembly members was, when we started registering our details on there, like our marriages and our birth and all that, where does that data go? Who has access to it?
It's on your, it stays in our database, and our database is stored in a server in the USA, which only I control. So it's very secure. My passwords are usually at least 12 characters, a mixture of letters, numbers, and strange characters. So they're very, very secure. And I check them all the time for security. You can see can you see on your screen now the website?
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing here is to come down and read all of this stuff here. As you can see, we offer some education courses. Each one of those is only $25, but they're worth doing because they'll teach you a lot about common law. This is where we pay homage to Kevin Annett. He's the guy that wrote the book that I based all this website on. And these are links down here to the other websites I've been talking about, including LIP. Now, if you click on Educate, there's videos and there's all sorts of information on here. This guy's fantastic. And then all down here, there's all sorts of information, your rights, what can we do to fix the constitutional crisis? There's all sorts of ideas, how the Constitution was written, etc., etc. Then if you come up here to meetings, this is all about the meeting. What is a common law assembly? And there's more information over here. You'll find your constitution, the assembly constitution here, the code of conduct, the statement of values, and even a convener's guide. So you might want to have a read of that. Here's how to start an assembly, because once your assembly grows to a certain number, you might want to strive off more assemblies. That's how to do it. So we try and put up as much information in here as possible, even how to create your own local council, what is a common law assembly, and then all of your rights are on here, including the International Covenant I mentioned before. Right now, let's go to common law assemblies. So you'll see on here, we've got Cairns. Let's have a look. And right now, we don't have any information, but I'll show you how to do that as soon as you give me a call. Then we can go to courts. And as you can see in here, we talk about everything about running a court, how to do it, and everything else. Then sheriffs. Now the courts, I'm training up a small team here at the moment to run our first court. once they've done that, that series of videos will become available for sale on the website to as an educational tool for any court or people, assembly wanting to set up courts. Just do the course and you'll know enough to do it. Next is records. Now, this is a bit of a funny one because this is an excellent video. You should watch this. Why do they dress like that and what's it all about? Here's how to become a CPO. Now, to do that, you would have to come down here to Sunnybank, Queensland, Brisbane, to meet Tim O'Dwyer, but he will do it. You can download the CPO certificate here. And then if we go down here a bit further, this is where you find your common law records. Now, watch what happens if you haven't logged in. You have to log in. So once I log in, there is my personal account, my profile. And as you can see here, I've already signed a charter. I've got a live birth record, my vehicle, my marriage, and even my medical marijuana. Now, if you have a look at the document here, oh, you've got to download it. Okay, we'll worry about that later. But it does have this what's the name on? Let me just put this in here. So this is my information in here, save and close. And then when we get over here, you can actually see it. And it will look like that.
Yep.
And there's my signature and everything down the bottom.
Yes, I've got something similar to that. I've registered a couple of things of mine in there.
Right. Okay. So it comes with a nice form, nice certificate, but that's what it looks like.
What I'm querying, I guess, and this is coming from our members. So take this as feedback from our members and the questions they had for me after I did this. What's the benefit of registering all of this with you? Number one, and number two, why would it be held on US servers instead of in Australia?
Well, to answer the second question, it's held in America because the servers are actually in various states and the Australian government cannot get to them and have them closed down without a court order from that state, which means they have to go through a lot of trouble to try and shut me down. Now, my CIR Now website is a real thorn in their sides, and the AFP, every time I go into court, they refer to it. They don't like it, but there's nothing they can do about it. So hosting in the US is very secure. Now, we're actually in the process over the next few months of moving everything over to a new hosting company in the UK. And that will, again, cause them problems because they can't just go to the UK and tell people, shut up, shut us up. So hosting overseas is a very safe option. If I put them in here, we're under Australian law. What's the benefit of doing all of this? Well, first of all, by recording, and we don't say registering, right? We record our details. You have proof that this is your property or your ideas or whatever it is, right? So, and as I said, when you record your live birth, you can take that to government offices and they will accept it. You might have to argue with them a bit, but eventually they will accept it.
Quick question about the live birth there, because some people in relation to our last conversation or our last person we had here were interested in the live birth. Are you talking about registering the live birth documents the original one? Or are you saying that you can have another live birth document if you have trouble accessing the one that was originally given to you?
Yeah, the one that was originally given to you is a government one, nothing to do with you, right? And that's traded on the stock exchange. The one that we record on the website is yours. It's yours only, and you control that completely.
So sorry, Mike, how does that differ? So what I would be referring to with the first document is your birth certificate, but then you can have a certificate of live birth, which is it recorded. Tell me again.
So the certificate, the difference being is that the certificate of live birth is going to be a document that was completed when the moment you were born. It tells the time, your weight, your body's mass, your length, who was present, any witnesses who may have been present, the names of your parents, and where it happened, all of that. And then they convert that into a birth certificate. Now,
Correct.
with the certificate of live birth, how is that different from what we're basically, I don't know if you say registering or reporting on your website?
Well, they're two totally separate things. The live birth that the government does of when you're born, that's theirs. They control it. You don't have that. You get a copy of the live birth of the birth certificate, not the live birth. So your birth certificate has got nothing to do with your live birth. It's a certificate issued by the government that says we own you.
Yes, we're aware of that.
Yeah. So when you record your live birth on our website, you are just reclaiming your being. It's yours. It doesn't belong to anybody else. We don't control it. We don't have anything to do with it. We just provide the service for you to use.
So could you be saying that with the structure that you've set up, that record has as much validation as the record where I might otherwise have went to get that document? So in other words, for me to be London, which is where I was born, the registrar's office.
Probably.
You say they carry as much weight? Would that be right?
I'd say more, because it's under common law, which is the highest law.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, you've got to understand that we're dealing with two separate legal systems.
That's right, yeah.
You know, so you've got to be very careful not to mix them up. And a lot of people make that mistake, you know, so, I'm going to court as a common law man, as a living, breathing, flesh and blood man. No, they don't care. But if you do go to court and you do that, there is a way to do it. A friend of mine has done it successfully many times, but you've got to know the technique. Yes,
Mike, when you do go to court, we've learned about a couple of different strategies in order to address this issue, but recognizing that they have a trust set up for you. Now, when you go into their courts, there's three primary roles in this trust. So there's the trustee, there's the beneficiary, and then there's the benefactor. Benefactor being the contributor of all the wealth, the beneficiary who's saying, hold out my hands or I'll have to pay you, and then the trustee, which is them. But they have in fact placed those trustee duties back on us.
yes.
So if you're aware that when you walk into that courtroom, you actually are all three of those.
Yes, but you have to establish that when you walk into that room.
So when you walk into that room, that opens up the opportunity for your strategies to be different. Essentially, depends on who you want to say you are presenting as when you walk into that court. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We've actually discussed this at great length. There's three of us run the national team. There's me, there's Lee Pilcher, and there's Glenn Sinclair. Now, Lee looks after all the financial side of running the national team. I do all the teaching and setting up the website and all the rest of that. And Glenn is kind of like our spiritual and educational guru. He's a very, very interesting chap. And, he and I have been friends for quite a long time. And we talk every day. And sometimes he guides me on spiritual matters and all sorts of things. But he's gone into court and established himself as the living, breathing, flesh and blood man, and they've had to accept it. And as soon as they do, the case against him is dismissed because they cannot deal with a living flesh and blood man. So I think what I'll do, I'm going to do a video interview with him, and I'll put it on my BitChute channel, and I'll get him to explain it and how it all works. Okay? So you can learn from someone who's actually done it.
That sounds good, because we have learned directly from, as you mentioned before, with Romley Stewart, where he's going in and he's presenting himself as the benefactor, not the trustee and not the beneficiary. He's the benefactor, which means he's the creditor, not the debtor. And so he's had, it's been a long, hard slog for him, as you probably know, but he's now got success with that, where he doesn't have to deal too much pain or anything like that. When he goes in there, he talks to the magistrate, they talk to him, and they have a good understanding of what's going on, and he walks out happy as.
Well, you see, Rom has got an amazing amount of knowledge and he knows how to do this. But
Yes.
if you try and copy him, boy, it's going to be hard for you. And he's, as you said, he's been through an awful lot. It's very difficult for him. I know that the problems that he's had. I actually had the pleasure of meeting him one time when I went up there, and he's a very reclusive man. I don't know if you know him personally, but he's a very, very reclusive man and very shy, but a real gentleman. I quite liked him.
Yep. All right. So I just wanted to kind of clarify, because like I said, we're kind of shifting gears in our assembly here on some different strategies on how we can address the courts. And Rom has presented his strategy to us. You've got a little bit of a different strategy, and we're also learning about a third and a fourth one as well.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to figure out, put the pieces together and pepper the system.
Yes.
Just keep testing it, and keep putting pressure on it for it to crack. And then each time it does crack, you've set a legal precedent for others to follow along and do the same thing.
Yeah, there's no one true path, right? Everybody has a slightly different approach, and every approach works sometimes. How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time, mate.
Exactly. So we're all taking those little bites out of the foundations of the system. It's weakening. Did you know that there was a secret meeting of many of the Lord Mayors around the country in Canberra just recently? They are worried. They're seeing what we're doing and they're worried because they know they have no authority. So they don't know what to do about us. So keep going. Don't stop. Whatever you can do to weaken the system.
Mike, thank you for your time. Look, we're kind of at the closing time of our meeting right here. But I might just throw it out to see if our assembly members have any questions for you. Are you all right with that?
Sure.
Okay. So I know that you guys are here right about now is our ending time. Is anybody interested in asking some questions to Mike directly while we've got him? No, not right now. I think got one. Yep. Eric.
And look, you know, if you haven't got any this time, perhaps you'll have them next time and invite me along again. I'll be very happy to come back. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mike. Okay, yeah. So thank you so much, Mike. My question today, I looked at the signature of Queen Victoria on the internet, and when she signed 9 of July 1900, the Constitution, she signed at the top on the left. Could you tell us why?
No, I don't know why. I've never had that question before.
Well, it's right here on my phone. I show it to Dennis, and she signed on the top left above her name. So it looks like over there too as well, she was getting out of the country.
That's interesting. Look, I'll do some research into that and find out what happened.
Yes, sorry.
Just on that, I think I'm fairly sure that Rom Stewart actually went into why she signed and where she signed and the color of the ink. I'm fairly sure he's got a video on that on Justinian deception.
Okay.
I think he did cover it. Any other questions?
If you find it, please send it to me.
Yeah, sure, Mike. Yeah. Yep.
Hello, my name's John Kelly.
Hi, John.
I've only owned 2 graders and a scraper for 29 years. I went to the council meeting on Tuesday, and Mr. Manning told a lady to sit down. And I said Rob Pine invited me to the meeting, and I started up a team called the Common Sense Party. And I had a son drowned in Brisbane 7-8 years ago. It's going to happen to Cairns one day if we don't do something about it. And it's very simple that we can fix the flooding, probably 2 years. Well, one question I'd like you to think about, if you could, I'd like some support with the Common Sense team, and we can make Cairns a better place. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, look, that's something you'd have to work with the Assembly on. That's not something I can do on the national side.
Sure, Mike. Any other quick questions to wrap it up? We're working good. I'm aware of your time, Mike, as well. Listen, everybody, please give Mike a really big round of applause.
Thank you. All right, we'll see you again.
Mike, you are very well received, my friend. Thank you very much for putting up with our technical issues, and we'll probably chat in the next few days.
Yeah, no worries. And Austin, please give me a call anytime, and well, before Friday, and I'll help you to sort out the website. Okay.
Awesome. He's given us a big thumbs up, Mike.
Okay. Thank you.
Good on you, mate. Thanks so much.
See you again. Cheers now.